But she's good. She's getting all the samples. Okay. You're going to have a little sample show. Okay. Now, with the turned-in stitch, a lot of times you wouldn't use this one a lot. It's just one that you would use if you don't have an overlock machine, and you're just trying to find a way to clean finish it. Because most times this takes a lot. I mean, first you got to do your seam to sew it together. Then you have to sew on each individual side a separate stitch. So it's like sewing it 3 times. And just imagine folding it under. So imagine doing that for the entire garment. It takes a lot of time. So, but just so that you guys know how to do it. All right. So we'll sew this one just at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this is pretty easy. All right. 1/2 inch is the seam allowance. Use your pins to keep everything together. Alrighty. And every time you sew a seam, you always want to make sure that you're pressing that seam open. Right? So we sew it. And this is what keeps the garment looking very nice as you are sewing and putting the garment together, is every stitch you press open your seams before you move on to the next one. Alright, now with this, each side we're going to take the seam allowance and fold it back. So fold it down till it meets the stitch line. So that's going to give us 1/4 inch. Alright, then we're going to fold it over and press it. Okay. So we'll do this with both sides. Now what I've noticed with a lot of students is they will actually take this and just start sewing it just like that. If you sew this with this side open, your stitches are going to end up being on the outside of the garment. This is the outside of the garment and we don't want that. So it's only your seam allowance. So you need to fold this fabric backwards so that you can just catch just the seam allowance. And we're going to sew in the center.
Is it a 1/4?
It's actually a little bit less than 1/4. So what I'm doing is lining up the fold with the center of my presser foot, the right side of the presser foot, so that I can get my stitch in the middle. Because if I go too far on this side, I'll miss it. So we want it in the middle so we make sure that we're catching it. Alright. And what I'm doing is just keeping my eye on the fold in the center of this presser foot. That's what I'm looking at. Voila. So that's the first side. So you can see I didn't stitch this down to the fabric. Okay, it's separate. Okay. Then we'll do the other side. So with this side, you'll just fold this under, making sure it meets that stitch line, the first stitch line. Press it, and then you can do the other side. Okay, so that's that one.